Teenagers destroyed records and tapes, which they felt contained
can actually transform your voice to that of an occultic hero.
Then you hear there's power in Satan.
If you grew up in the 80s or 90s, there's a good chance you remember the Satanic Panic, the mass hysteria that Satan was in everything. Your music, your movies, your cartoons, your games, and even your breakfast cereal. Media and talk shows couldn't get enough of it, and it spawned one of the most popular SNL characters of all time.
Could it be Satan?
So let's backpedal a bit and relive the Satanic Panic of the 80s and 90s.
Exposing Satan's underground.
One of the things that defined the 80s and 90s is something that not many people talk about nowadays. It was the Satanic Panic. My most vivid memories of the Satanic Panic revolved around music. From Judas Priest to Ozzy Osbourne to Twisted Sister. In the 80s and 90s, it seemed like Satan was in all the music.
Being into heavy metal doesn't necessarily mean your kid's also into Satanism.
And MTV helped distribute this demonic insanity with its music videos. I had friends who were not allowed to watch MTV for fear of being led astray by the likes of Metallica or Cinderella. Heavy metal was the obvious culprit. It was loud and fast and had all that big hair. Satan hated the ozone layer. God forbid you even tried playing any of those songs backwards. Sounds like buy more of our records. Back then, Judas Priest took the brunt of the satanic heat. Judas Priest's lead singer, Rob Halford, was even dragged into court. At the heart of the lawsuit was the claim that Judas Priest's songs contained messages that, when played backwards, said, quote, "Try suicide," and "Let's be dead." Talk shows like Oprah and Geraldo milked the insanity for all it was worth. I mean, what's scarier than a teen out of control listening to his devil's rock and roll? Then, just when you thought all a parent had to do was keep their kids away from MTV, Satan spread out like a good capitalist and came for your games.
D&D, and it's become popular with children anywhere from grammar school on up. Not so with a lot of adults who think it's been connected to a number of suicides and murders.
I never got to play D&D as a kid because it was part of Satan's toolbox. D&D was basically a direct line to Satan himself. Sure, you could summon a demon with a Ouija board, but Satan lived in your D&D games. The game warped kids' thinking and drove them to behave erratically. And it didn't help that news reports bombarded parents on how D&D led to Satan worship. It was a national crisis. I mean, Tom Hanks' first role was in a television movie about the D&D satanic scare called Mazes and Monsters. Tom Hanks becomes so obsessed with the game, he gets entranced by it and actually believes he's in the game for real. At this point, you may be asking, how did this all come about? Well, most believe it was a backlash to all the occultism in the 60s and 70s. Basically, anything that made your hippie baby boomer parents feel uncomfortable became evil. Hard rock? Evil. Role-playing games? Evil. The Smurfs and He-Man? 100% evil.
Skeletor, the master of the universe.
By this time, the panic was in full force. Thundercats was inspired by heathen gods. E.T. died and was resurrected again, and could therefore be confused with Christian figures. Smurfs are blue with black lips, and were depictive of dead creatures.
You'll notice that they're depicted as blue with black lips. And you know what happens to you when you die? You turn blue and your lips turn black.
Saturday morning cartoons would teach children to get into spells and witchcraft. Rainbow Bright had a pentagon on her cheek. Books like The Lord of the Rings and The Chronicles of Narnia were burned in front of churches to expel the evil demons that dwelled within. Procter & Gamble had to hold a press conference to deny that they were funding a satanic church. Then, Satan created the internet, and lo, the evils that lurked inside those series of tubes.
I'd like to say something about this.
Let me ask you something. Have a talking doll rip out your voice box?
In satanic
There are
occultism,
deeper reasons that go
that
beyond
which is
mere lustful
good is
power
bad.
and the unlimited
That which is
drugs
bad
and
levels of
deviant
involvement. There are
spending.
people who just use
satanic
it for
occult
cult worship, may be involved in some video game.
Now, this is
kind of level.
the kids that listen to this are killing themselves and each other because of it.
Where am I?
You're safe. You've made it through the 80s and 90s. You survived the Satanic Panic.
So that's a relief.
Yeah. I dropped you off in 2021. Have fun.